Hi everyone, thanks for the introduction. So today I would like you to introduce this ADHD, which is really kind of getting increasingly important in our new generation. So I would like you to focus on the screen, and you can see a student sitting in a classroom, but he's not paying attention to what's going on in the classroom. He is looking other way around, and he's just paying no attention to the blackboard at that point. So he's kind of lost, he's distracted, and that's most common about ADHD diagnosed kids. That's one of the most common traits they have. And right now, 1 of every 10 kids in the United States between age of 4 and 17 is being diagnosed with ADHD. And those numbers are increasing. Interestingly enough, it's much more prevalent in boys than relative to girls. So if you just leave ADHD untreated, what happens? So just think about it. A kid who cannot concentrate on anything, he just looks around, he is thinking about 1,000 things at one time. He's unable to focus, his memory is lapsing, so ultimately he's not going to do great in homework. Ultimately he's going to flunk classes, and if it's progressed to adulthood, he will have a really issue with his career moving around. But luckily, we have medication to treat that, and that's great. And that's where comes Ritalin. So one of the most famous and most highly administered drug. It's all commonly or chemically known methylphenidate, and it's basically a class of drugs we call stimulants. So what stimulants do, that they basically kind of help patients to focus more towards their work, kind of help them with the concentration span, help them memorize, and they're really effective. And that's why you can see in the last few years, it has been highly prescribed to ADHD patients. And US is leading the numbers right there. But when this has been prescribed for the last 30 years now, but when clinicians give this drug to patients, they typically, because these kids are growing, they look at their height. And there was an observation that these kids are not growing as much as their peers. There was a just interesting observation, got published, and people didn't got much thought for a long time. But what we are asking here is, our question is it just, Ritalin is just affecting growth of bones, or there's more to it? What about bone integrity? What about bone structural integrity is function? And right there, like thanks Gabe, because he made my work really easy in explaining bone. But it's also, and as we saw in ADHD, there is a difference, sex difference. Males are more susceptible to it. There's also true about the Ritalin treatments. How does that go about? And dosage, what about dosage? How dosage changes those effects, if there are any. So first of all, the Ritalin is prescribed for a behavioral disorder. We look at behavior and how we gauge behavior. Before that, I'll have to say to study all these questions, we use rat model. In that, we use young growing rats, which is currently not mature, and we administer Ritalin at high dosage and low dosage. We provide this dosage for 8 weeks, and after 8 weeks, we analyze, during those 8 weeks, we analyze their behavior, how they behave at low dosage and high dosage. And then after that, once the 8 weeks are gone, we look at their bones. So let's look at behavior first. Just to simplify the whole experiments, I'll just present 2 main aspects of behavior. One is running around and how much distance is covered by the rats, and how quickly it was covered, like velocity. So age match, or what we call control rats, which basically are same age, they show nice regular behavior, what we expect in those rats. But when we give them Ritalin at even low dosage, we see a significant increase in their activity. They start to move around a lot. And it's not that, and it's both true for male and females. But interestingly enough, females show even more effect, or behavioral effect. So females are moving much more, and they have much more velocity. They're moving with higher speed. Okay, what's happened when you give them higher dose? And we see same trends continues. That females are much more behavioral responsive to Ritalin than males are. male rats. So that was his study, and that was kind of interesting to us because we didn't expect that. But we got a bit more surprised as we move into our favorite organ, bone. And we noticed that in our first experiments, females showed, there was a first set of experiments we did females, and females showed no effect in bone. Their bone don't change, even with high dosage and low dosage. And when we move to male rats of the same age, interestingly, we see a significant differences. Their bone starts to deteriorate. So if you look at the images blue, you can see bone structure. And that's micro CT, as Gabe mentioned. So you can see bone structure, nice bone structure, nice strong bone structure. But as you start to give them low doses of Ritalin, over time, for 8 weeks, it starts to deteriorate. You see the quantity of bone is significantly reducing. And if you continue, if you go high dose, that effect is even more. So you can clearly see a loss of bone quantity at this point, and that's significant statistically speaking. So next, ultimately, bone is to provide support, because we walk through bones, they go to a lot of impact. So we want to see how's the bone quality. Would they go through different strain and stresses, different forces? So to test that, we do something known as mechanical testing of 3-point bending. So in this experiment, we take rat bone and we apply force at them. And we record the force at which those bones snap or they break. And that's what we did. And we saw same behavior, same thing. That males' rat bones were really weakened by even low and high dosage of Ritalin, which was not seen or not observed with females. They didn't show that much respectability in bone strength. So here we come out that, okay, we are looking at much more behavioral effects of Ritalin in females, but that's not true. But when it comes to bones, that's not the case. Now, considering that males are more susceptible to ADHD, male kids are more susceptible to ADHD, that's really significant now. So now let's go back to the same student that we had in class, and he was looking other way around. So that's great. Ritalin will help him to focus, and he may go ahead. He will have a challenging life, because yes, every drug has effects and limited effects. So that kid will go through classrooms and will be able to concentrate and look at and study well and hopefully have good career. It will have challenges, but ultimately you do not want that kid to break bones as go older or end up in a wheelchair due to early osteoporosis, because he already had a kind of challenging life. So to help that, we are basically, and being scientists, what we do, one question leads us to more questions. So our next questions are what we're trying to investigate now. Why are there sex differences? It has to do with something with physiology or anatomy of male and female, or it has something to do with hormones or different aspects of it. Or it may be at physical activity, because female rats are much more active. Mechanical stimulus is an important factor. Secondly, dosage has a response. So how can we cure that? How can we look around that? Can we change dosages? Can we change how the dosage being administered? Give a gap or try other medication? So that's what you're working on at this point, and that's our future direction of research. At this point, I would like to thank my mentor, David Komatsu, and my colleagues who helped me along this study, and of course the funding agencies, NIH. Thanks for your attention, and any questions, please?